Hello everybody, Bruce Elgort here with part 2 on processing forms, HTML forms using PHP. Now, hopefully you've watched part 1 of this video where I introduced you to the $_ request superglobal, because now what we want to do is we want to start building a proper HTML page that's going to provide feedback to the user if they forgot to enter one of the fields and simply to display the data that they entered. In the future, you'll learn how to, write that data or store that data to a SQL database. So let's get started. So let's say that the user filled in the form, or they attempted to fill in the form, and they forgot to enter in the name field. So how do we, in PHP, determine or check to see if they did? And if they didn't do so, then give them some feedback, right? So let's do this. From your intro to programming class that you took, you learned about if statements, okay? And you probably learned how to do them in Python. And the Python syntax uses, colons to designate, various portions of the if statement. In PHP and other languages like JavaScript, this is the format that you're going to start using for if statements, right? The if, right, and then the condition in parentheses, and then between a set of curly braces or mustaches or seagulls, whatever you want to call them, you put in some code, right? So the first condition that we want to check for is to make sure that and just follow this closely and then I'll review it, is that the name, right, the name from the request superglobal is not blank, right? It's not empty, that they filled it in, right? So there's a function in PHP called empty, which is going to check to see if the field doesn't contain anything. And, well, the variable contains anything, okay, not the field so much, okay? And here we're saying not. So we're saying if the name, right, the name that was submitted is not empty, then what do we want to do? What do we want to do when the name is empty? We want to let the user know, right, that the name was well, we want to display the name, okay? So let's just create a variable temporarily and assign that variable the value, right, of the name, right? The name that was submitted. Sorry about that right there. I should have deleted that before. And if it's not, right, if it was empty, right, this first condition here, just to show you, this will execute, right, if it's not empty, right? So if somebody filled in the name, we're simply going to grab the name that they typed in and assign it to the variable $name. And then else, right, and I think you remember this from your intro to programming, your Python, right? This is another block of code that I want to execute if the condition was not true, okay? So here I have else, okay? And then I have another set of brackets, okay? Open and closing here. Okay, so the first set opens and closes here on line 11. That's where it closes, and right here on line 9, that's where it opens. So if it isn't filled in, let's set the variable of $name equal to null, okay? And hopefully by now you've read up about null on the php.net site, okay? And the other thing I want to do too right here is I want to echo out some informational text that says the value of name was not filled in. Okay, and we'll do that. So now, right, we have two things that are going to happen here. Okay, we're checking to make sure that the name is filled in, and if it is, then this variable $name is going to get set. If it's not, we're going to set the value of $name, the variable, to null, and we're going to echo out the value of name was not filled in. That's not good English, right? That's not a good. How about the name is a required input? How's that? A little better, right? Okay. So now that we did that, right, we want to display back to the user, right, some information, right? So if, right, another if statement, if $name, okay, so that means if name is equal to something, right, then we want to echo out, right here, echo out the name entered was, and then we'll put $name, and we should put that in a set of paragraph tags too. Let's just do that, just because we can. Right, just because we can. So let's fire this puppy up and see what we have. Okay, so let me go back here. That's from the prior video. I always forget to do that. Let's click on form.html, and let's just have it display back what we enter in, right? Because I did enter my name, and I'm going to click on submit. The name entered was Bruce Elgort, right? That's correct, right? So let's go back. I'm going to just click on form.html again, and let's leave it blank. Let's not fill it in, and let's hit submit. The name is a required input. So we did some validation here. So let me go back one more time. So here, right, let me just do this. Whoops. Check to see if field is not empty. I'm just putting some comments in. Okay. If it's not empty, then set variable. Okay, and here we're going to say else was not filled in. We set a value of null, which is a special value in PHP, and we're going to assign that to the $name variable, and we're going to echo out the name is a required input. Then below here, and I did this on purpose because what I want to build upon here is to check each of the fields and set variables appropriately. And I'll do another one here. I'll do like street or something. And then I want to, in one fell swoop here, be able to display all the output for the fields that were filled in. But as we do, in fact, get errors, display them as they occur. Okay? So let me just say here, check, actually display values, right? So let's do one more field. Let's rob and duplicate here. So we're going to copy our own code, and we are going to paste that in. And now instead of name, we're going to do street. Okay, and we'll do street here. We'll change the variable name to street. And we'll change it to street here. Right, and we'll say the street is a required input. Okay, and now here I'm going to use some more stuff which you should have read about. You know, some operators that you should have read about. I'm going to use and. So, and we did this in Intro to Programming as well. We're going to say if name and $street, right? So if both of those fields are in fact not null, right, that they equate to some value, okay, then I'm going to echo out the name, and then I'll copy this line, copy, and I will paste in, well, I pasted it in, I'll indent it, and I'll say the street entered was, and I'll change this to $street. So let's go back. Let's go back to the form here. In fact, I'll just hit enter on the form. It's very important. There it is. I hit enter, and I'll type in my name and 123 Main Street. and we'll hit submit. So we have the name entered was Bruce Elgort, and the street entered was 123 Main Street. So let's go back and refresh the page and say Bruce. Actually, let's leave them both blank. Let's just leave them both blank. Ready? And hit submit. So the name is a required input, and the street is a required input. So take a look at this code. Let me make it smaller so you can see it here. Let me make it smaller. And what I suggest you do is learn to pause the video when you need to type in some code, and you should be, typing this in on your own. So what we covered here is a lot, okay? We talked about the $_request superglobal. We introduced you to the if statement, again, which you should know from Intro to Programming. And the syntax is a little bit different, but the concepts are the same. We learned about the curly braces, the else, and then the curly braces again. And we learned about the empty function, again, which you should have read up on php.net. Okay? And then at the bottom here, we used an operator, the AND operator, which means both of these things, right, need to be true in order for the code in these parentheses, these braces, these seagulls, these curly braces, right, will execute. Again, a lot here in part 2. Go over part 1 one more time and replay this video until you understand what's going on here. Now, one word of warning. Okay, one word of warning. Radio buttons are going to act a little bit differently, and I'll cover that in the next video.